Welcome to the Golden Hour. I'm so happy today to have Julia Holian of Career Transformation Partners with us today. We're going to be talking about career transitions, resume writing, how to have confidence in your career search. You know, there's so much happening today in the job field or the career field. And how do you stay empowered? How do you have a job that you like? How do you stay relevant? All these great things. And Julia is an expert in that area. And I'm so glad to have you today. And we're going to have a casual conversation around what to do when you're looking for a new job, all those good things. Julia, thanks for being here today. I love connecting with you. Every time we chat, we always just feels really good. So why don't you start off with telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you like to do, please.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm Julia Holian. I am a career strategist and interview coach. I was an executive recruiter for, 20 years, placing finance executives in the Bay Area. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth and getting into interviewing and helping people move forward. I own Career Transformation Partners, and we're a small boutique firm in the Bay Area. And what we do is we help everybody who could be at the college level all the way through to, just before retirement, advance their career. We are trying to help them transform whatever it is that they're doing in their career, elevate their success. And we do that by writing their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles and helping them create a networking strategy, job search strategy, how to interview successfully, negotiate compensation, just kind of everything full circle from where they are to where they're trying to go. And that's probably the most fun I've ever had, is watching somebody being in that one job where they're like, this is okay, but I want to move on to something else.
Right.
But I don't know how to do it. And
Right.
then we help create that roadmap so that they can do it and do it with confidence and do it successfully, and then be able to look back and go, holy cow, here's where I am now.
Right. I love that. Yeah. I mean, most of our life is work, or, it's dominated by work, right? It's not separate. Life and home is definitely, now with the advent of Zoom and everybody working from home, work is such a big part of your job, is such a big part of your life, right?
Right.
Can't leave it at the office because my office is in my living room, right?
Right.
For a lot of people. So that's interesting too. It used to be like you hated your job, or you had your job and you left it alone, but now it's part of like who you are mostly, right? Your work. I mean, you can't have a crappy job and be happy at home. It would be really hard, don't you think?
Oh yeah. Well, I think in some ways our jobs have often defined us. Even if you go back to like the 1950s, when people, worked at one company for 30 years, that was sort of their identity. I think it's the same today, but it's not about the company that we're a part of so much. It's about the work that we do. And I think that's kind of one of the shifts, where I think it used to be about the company, back in, my grandparents' generation, where now it's the work that we do. And one of the biggest differences from then to now, as we all know, is that people change jobs a lot. And so it becomes more about, what do I know and what do I do and the value I bring and how do I apply that and the successes that I have. But it's a big part in many ways of who we are, and because we create that career. Whereas again, decades ago, you didn't create a career, you had a job in a company, and it wasn't really a career. Today, a career is much more of a label on yourself.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, as things evolve too, right? I mean, that would be like why you would want a career, right? So you can stay relevant as opposed to becoming a commodity, right? So like if you're just working, at a job that anybody can have, then the risk of, being let go, or maybe not even being as happy, is increased, right? Because you're just doing something that was already created. So I like what you said. A career is something that you're creating. Right. So when somebody comes to you, I want to do this, I want to do that, there's probably a higher fulfillment with a career than taking a job, perhaps that's a commodity. So it's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about evolution, because I think that's relevant into what what we're talking about. So first and foremost, we were just talking about your business name change.
Mhm.
And why don't you share a little bit about why you renamed your business? And I think that kind of plays into the evolution of what we're
Right.
talking about. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So when I started my business 8 years ago, we were Holian Associates. Took my last name. That's how everybody knew me. I've got this fabulous colleague now, Liz Helton, who I work with. Gosh, we've been together, what, 6, 7 years now? And Holian Associates was great. But when we started looking at what do we do for our clients and how do we help them and what do we want to be known as, I don't really want to be known as Holian Associates. That doesn't tell anybody anything, really. It was great for when I was building the business, but it didn't, if nobody goes and searches for Holian, right? But Career Transformation Partners is such an encapsulation of what we do. We help people transform. We help people move from where they are today to where they want to go. It's different for everybody. So some people are looking to move up the ladder. Other people are trying to make a real pivot and change what they do. Like maybe they've been, I don't know, maybe they've worked as a writer and now they want to go become a nurse, or they want to make some kind of a shift. Some are big changes and some aren't. And career transformation is really at the root for everybody. When I was looking at names and trying to figure it out, I'll tell you one of the words that I wanted to throw in and I think is applicable to what we're talking about is agility. And we hear in tech, because we're surrounded, you and I are in the Bay Area, we're surrounded by, all these fantastic tech companies. We hear about agile and how that, applies sort of the methodologies of how people, get things done. But career agility is really important. The ability to continuously learn and grow and think of how can I enjoy what I'm doing? How can I take on new things? Or can I even step back? There are times in people's lives where they need to step back for whatever reason. So that transformation and that agility is that sort of the essence of being able to kind of move around so that you have what you want when you want it or when you need it. And the flexibility that comes with having confidence in your career change.
That's interesting because back it used to be like you worked at IBM for like 25 years, or you worked at Xerox your whole life, right? There's not a lot of agility in that, right? Like
you worked for the company. You were a company person and you
Yeah.
kind of did whatever the company told you, like, oh, we need somebody over here, shift over to that. You didn't really control your career that much.
Yeah. You work at GE forever, Ford forever. So you're basically delegating your career and like hoping that you never get laid off, because if you take a position like that, then you're not evolving, you're not getting new skills, you're not staying abreast of what's happening in the industry, you're not taking on new technologies. But there are companies, like when I worked at the Gap, when I first graduated college, there was Gap Corporate, that you could apply for different jobs within the company, right? You could work at Old Navy, you could work at Banana Republic, all these things here. I mean, a lot of companies may not offer that, but do you find that you're dealing with those types of things where people can get a different job within the company? Are those different challenges? Because I know a lot of these tech companies, you could do that, right?
A lot of the big companies, people will move around. It's interesting though. I think the people who do that the most successfully are the people who do their job well in whatever department or team or company brand they're in. But they are also good at talking to other people and networking. And I think that's really the kind of like the secret ingredient to anybody moving around, whether you want to move outside the company or even inside the company, is to get to know other people. But yes, I see it, use Google as an example. There's so many sort of startup companies, even within Google and everything that they're doing, that there are a lot of people who move around and stay within the company. But they're in the company, but really what they do is, gets to change pretty frequently because they move around these different special projects.
Interesting. Different departments. I know too. I mean, a lot of times I hear people say, I just really like the people I work with. The job is crap, but the people are nice. So I'm just going to stay for the people. Right? You hear that?
100%. All the time. As a matter of fact, I do some training occasionally on interviewing, and I tell them right in the very beginning, the number one thing that you need to look for when you interview is actually not based on the job description. I know everybody has the job description. That's what they have to talk about in the interview. But when they're vetting the company, they need to look at the people. You're spot on. You can love your job, but if you don't like the people or trust the people that you're with, your days are numbered. And I don't mean that you're going to get fired, but you're going to be you're probably not going to be successful, because if you don't like or trust or feel a part of the team that you're supposed to be part of, it's never going to be a long-term place for you. Meanwhile, to your point, if you could not love the job, but the people are fantastic, you can probably actually create a lot more at that company. You could maybe supplement the work that you do with other things that keep you engaged in learning and like it, because the people are what make it. I mean, the people are the reason why we show up to work. Interesting.
So if somebody said, I don't know about the work, but it's pretty good pay and the people are amazing, you would say, okay, well, maybe explore it. It's not a red flag. It's not like 100% red flag.
It's not 100% red flag. We actually have a scorecarding system that we give our clients. We actually have them create their own personal scorecard so that they can sort of rank and rate everything that they're looking for. But people is always a very big part of that. So again, if you can get into a company where you really like the people, you don't love the job, but the company itself is growing, evolving, changing, and you can take on new things, you can move your career forward. You just may know that you're not going to be there forever, but it's going to be pleasant. You're going to enjoy it. And that, I mean, the number one reason people come to us when they say, I need to leave my job, is because they don't like the people.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody has zero confidence. They've been in a job they hate forever and they go, oh, I don't know. Am I going to like this job? How am I going to know? What if I go there and I don't like it? You know, at least they've got the people, the relationships are what's important, right? I'm always thinking about my team and the relationships that we have, because sometimes it gets hard, but if you have the right person on your team, oh yeah, that client hasn't gotten back to us for a month. It can get really frustrating, but if you have a great team member, that's okay. I'll follow up. Here, how can I help you? Maybe you should try this. Here's some new ideas. Oh, it's that collaborative environment that really makes it all together. And even now with like people being on Zoom, I still think it's team. You're still a team. You're just not.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's being able to have those conversations with those people and say, this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I don't enjoy doing. Figuring out what your talents and strengths are, knowing what the other person's talents and strengths are, and collaborating and finding out, like, that's one of the things that I find most fun with my colleague, Liz.
Yeah.
She's so talented and she, I don't know, she just comes up with the best ideas. And I think when you work with people that you like and trust, you don't worry so much about another person coming up with an idea. When you don't trust people or you don't like them, you don't want to share your ideas. So you stunt your own growth. Automatically, you're doing that to yourself. You don't end up asking people's other opinions. So you don't learn from them. And it just becomes this very stunted,
stale, stagnant. Yeah.
Right. And nobody wins, really.
The company either.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so people oriented. Now that we're talking about this, it's like, I remember one place I worked, I don't want to name it, but there was always this one girl who was always so negative. And it was like we were designing all these cool ads and we were all having so much fun, and she just hated it. And I remember it was such a drag because we were all so excited to do it. And it's like her desk was like right over by mine. And I remember it was like this heavy weight,
Mhm.
And so that's something like that. I mean, do people come to you and they go, "Oh, I love my job, but this one person, she's just so," or the woman that manages me, she's just so hard to deal with. Like,
Right. And a lot of times that happens when somebody new is brought in, like that new executive, that new leader is hired. And so when people are interviewing, one of the things that I tell them to look around and pay attention to is across the organization, are they hiring people that you feel you would want to work with? Because you can get in your own cocoon even in a department. And I've had times where people have said, give you an example. I had a client a couple of years ago who wanted to go work for a former boss of hers because we worked so great together. They were terrific. If I went to this company, I would get to work with him. He's great. His department's great. I don't like the rest of the company. I kind of think the executive team, isn't all that great, but he would buffer me from that. And my first question was, and what if he leaves in 6 months? What if he's not there? What does that do to you? So you don't want to also join a company where it's that one team. You're like, this team is great, but everything around it is terrible, because that will infiltrate at some point. No team stays exactly the same way forever. People move around, people come in and out, things are going to change. So you have to look at the whole organization and say, does this organization hire people that I would know are good for me, and make a decision that way, because that way, as things move around, that you're still probably going to have that same continued type of style of person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wrote down like there's 100% guarantee that things are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So like settling into a job, what's the average amount of time that someone has a job now? I mean, do people really have a job for 10 years or what? Like, what is that?
No, it's interesting. I saw 2 stats in the last 2 months, and I don't know which one's actually right because everybody pulls from different places. But I heard in the Bay Area that the average time a person stays in their job is 18 months. And then I saw another one that said 3 years. So I think the 3 years is probably in between there. I would say in the Bay Area, most people stay at their jobs between 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
It depending on the industry though. And I would say this is a tech focused environment, and there are a lot of other companies that aren't tech, but they support tech. So it kind of transcends that. But I think if you go into a lot of the more traditional companies that are like banking and finance, insurance, things like that, people do tend to stay longer. They don't tend to hop around. A lot of the movement ends up happening through acquisitions because we see all those companies merging and molding. But yeah, it's not a long tenure. And I recommend that people don't actually stay at a job for more than 8 years. I tell people that at the 4-year mark, if they haven't already been interviewing, they should be talking to people and knowing what's happening out in the market. And I think I told you this, before as well. I'm a proponent that everybody should have their resume together at all times.
Right.
Always have your resume together so that if something comes your way, you're ready. Second reason why is because if your resume is ready to go, you are continuously putting on your resume the accomplishments that you are achieving every month or every quarter. And it's a good reminder of your value and what you bring to the table.
I love that.
So you need that confidence of, hey, that's right. We knocked that project out of the ballpark last year. If your resume is ready to go, it serves multiple purposes. You can use it for just capturing all the things that you've done. You can use it for your annual review. You can use it to explain why you should get a promotion or why you should get an increase in salary. You can use it if somebody is going to, contact you because they want, to interview you. And you should be always looking for what's happening out in the market. It's how you understand what your value is. So I think everybody should be doing that, but I really caution people against staying at a company for more than 8 years. I actually think 5 to 6 years is really kind of the cap. I talked to somebody the other day. His company is laying off his entire department. He's been there for 19 years. And
that's yeah. So he's got to be a little frightened to say.
Yeah. He's not gone yet. He's got a couple of months and he'll probably have a nice severance, but still 19 years. The challenge with staying at a company for a really, really long period of time, unless you're at a Google and you really have moved around to multiple projects and teams and departments. If you stay at a company for a long, long period of time, it is harder to go get another job. You're older. We know that age discrimination exists. You look like you became a company person and you may not be agile and be able to assimilate into another organization. And you look like you might have gotten comfortable. That's the perception out in the market. So I think people should always be networking, always be kind of interviewing, looking at different opportunities. And then if you're doing that, you can actually really take the opportunity. That's a great opportunity when it comes about, when it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like forced evolution, right? I mean, interesting. Yeah, because if you're an employer and someone's been at the job, you would think they're probably not that innovative, right? They just stay there. Unless, like you said, if it was different, areas.
If you can show a lot of progression and a lot of change and a lot of accomplishments, but a lot of times when I see somebody who's been at a company for a long, long time, they don't necessarily on their resume show that recently they've really made this huge impact. And so the, sort of the opposite of that or the perception that comes about is that, you kind of got comfortable and everybody, everybody today wants to hire a 35-year-old with 25 years of experience.
Right.
And which doesn't really, exist, obviously. They want somebody who's young, they want somebody with a lot of experience, but they want somebody who's got vitality and energy and not staying at a company for a long time. Looks like maybe you just sort of rested on your laurels.
Interesting. What about a CEO of a company or a founder?
Well, so a founder is different because a founder is usually some kind of an entrepreneur. It's their business. And they don't usually go out and look for another job anyway. If they are going to go look to do something else, they're going to start up another company or they're going to do consulting. For a CEO, it's been pretty common here in the Bay Area that CEOs don't stay at a job for more than 18 to 36 months, that they move around. CEOs, a lot of people in the C-suite, they really just don't stay for more than 3 years. They are usually brought in for specific points in time in a company's evolution. And there are some people who might rise through the ranks and then they get to that C-suite. But most of the time, most executives, they move around. They're good at networking. They know what their skills are. They're always talking to people and they hear about new opportunities and they're not afraid to make a move.
Right. Because if you're in the C-suite, you're probably on the edge, right? You're always like innovating. You have to be on the cutting edge. You have to be like knowing what's happening, right? And so moving, pivoting. So I think this is interesting. So you're saying to be relevant and our initial conversation was, how do you have empowerment in job transitions, career transitions, confidence to have a job that you love and enjoy? Part of that sounds like what you're saying is always having your resume up to date, always knowing your skill set, not staying in one job too long. But I guess the question I wrote is like, how do I get confidence around moving? Moving to a new career, moving to a new job? And I'm repeating myself, but it sounds like you'll have some confidence. Like someone I heard the other day, she said, I haven't looked at my resume in 10 years. I've been at the same job. I don't even know how to edit it or write it. That's a great introduction to you. I should introduce her. But if you're always updating your resume, even if you don't want to leave, maybe your confidence level will go down. But the question is, if you don't have any confidence in finding a new job, if you feel like you're just so scared, maybe you think you've been out too long, what are some of the things that someone could do to feel more confidence or empowered around their job strategy, search, or career transition?
Well, you kind of said the first thing, if somebody hasn't worked on their resume for 10 years, that honestly, when we help somebody with their resume, it is one of the biggest transformations. People think of it as this document
Yes.
where they're simply like listing out the work that they did. The confidence and empowerment that comes with having a really attractive resume that showcases all the things that you've done. You know, the hardest part for us putting together a resume is actually getting information out of our clients and having them recall what they've worked on and what they've done and the impact. So a lot of people will say to me something like, you know, I didn't do that by myself. You know, I did it with the team. Well, of course you did it with a team. Nobody gets to accomplish anything in this life by themselves all the time. You're always doing some things individually and some things as a team, but you can still find a way of showcasing that on your resume. And again, if you've got something where you're like, this looks good, this tells my story, this shows the work that I've done, I've reminded myself of the things that I'm capable of, that helps. So number one, I would get their resume together. Number two, I would get their LinkedIn profile together. But that's for a whole other probably, podcast that we could talk about, of like the importance and relevance of LinkedIn today for somebody who wants to have a job. But I think LinkedIn is also really important. I think the other thing is networking is essential. And that's where most people drop the ball. Most people get into their job. They don't think about networking. They don't think that they have to. They don't understand what networking is. They think networking means that they have to go to some big event and go work a room. And that is like terrifying to 90% of the population. That's not what networking is. Networking is knowing your circles that you want to be in. So for example, again, I worked in accounting and finance for years. So let's say you are an accountant. That's your profession. But maybe you work in a hospital or in some kind of med device or healthcare. Your healthcare might be your industry. So when you network, what you want to do is you want to build up the number of people that you know in your profession and in your industry, and have those people get an understanding for what you do. Because if you are networking with them, they're more likely to know about a job in their own company, hear about a job from somebody else, give you some insights into what's happening in the market, share different relevant information. And that's what you want to build. And you don't have to go to a big conference and talk to people, except for the ones at your table. But you do have to network. And networking, what people fail to understand is that they hone their messaging when they're networking. So again, when people worry about making a change, they get anxious about interviewing. And the best way to kind of get your spiel down for interviewing is networking. Start talking to people, working on what you want to say. Hey, this is what I do. This is what I want to do. This is who I want to do it for. This is why I love what I do. If you nurture that through networking, it gives you more confidence in the interview process. Because that's where I think most people kind of jump off, is they don't even get involved in looking for a job, because like putting together their resume is too scary. Get interviewing is too scary. Let's just avoid all those things.
You know what? I also think too, going out there and networking, whatever that is too, it's like manifesting or like putting it out to the universe, right?
Absolutely.
So like if you've been in a job for a while, you hate it, least you can start like seeing yourself, well, in the position, you can start you're like making it happen. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, networking is like going to a big thing, but but you can also just connect with people, or like you could follow up with people that went to your college, right? So if you look on LinkedIn, I can see other people that went to Chico State, and I can see like if I was ever going to look for a job, I could see, where they're working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as creative directors or whatever, and I could reach out to them. Hey, is your place hiring? I mean, I know people work at agencies, Apple, I mean, all over, right? And there's a
Right.
camaraderie associated with going to college, right? So even if I didn't know them, I could say, hey, I went to Chico too, right? So having that personal touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, they're so intimidated about networking, but I find out that they love detail and they love to research. I'm like, okay, I want you to replace networking with researching. You're doing research, maybe you're doing on the street research, maybe you're doing, but what you just described in a sense was a research project.
Okay.
So you could, if you want to shift the narrative in your head, hey, you know what? In order for me to get the next job, I need to do a research project. So my research project is going to be, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's something else, but I'm going to go search for people who do these things. So I'm just going to start with finding people. So when I'm working with somebody, what we'll do then is we will craft messages. So let's just say using LinkedIn, because that's one of the number one places to network and kind of do your research. We'll create maybe 2 or 3 sort of template in-mails or messages that they could send to somebody. So if it's that person that went to college at the same college, or somebody who works at a company that maybe they used to work at, it could be a number of different things. People that you know, people that you don't know. We'll create these little sort of paragraphs so they're ready to go. You can do a little bit of customizing each time. But they just need to go find those people. But if they look at it like a research project, sometimes that shifts the idea in their head and it doesn't seem so intimidating. And they move the needle and they find new people.
I love that. I mean, so like if we're gonna wrap this up with this final question, I think what we were talking about too is like fear, right? Moving through fear, right? Like I've been in a job for a while, maybe, that it's the inadequacy, right? People thinking they're not, adequate, right? No one's going to hire me. I'm not smart enough. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I should have found a job 5 years ago. I've been here too long. I don't even want to do it. All of that, right? So I love what you're saying, Julia, about the narrative. It's like, how do you change the narrative so you're not in fear? And I think part of when people hire you, you can help them with that narrative, right? And I love what you were saying about the paragraphs. It's like, where do I even start, right? If you hated your job, right? Like, and then you're providing those tools to help people start and get going on that. Because like we were talking about before, you can't do it on your own. It's never just one person. And even if it was, why would you want to do it on your own? It's much more fun when you're with allied individuals to help you. You're an expert in your area. I'm an expert. Why not bring in an expert to make your career transition much more enjoyable as opposed to freaking out about it? I don't think we're supposed to freak out.
No, and I think that's if there's one takeaway that people would get from this, it would be, don't get into your own little cocoon where you think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually shutting yourself off from the world. That the way to keep your career alive and lively and enjoyable and to be able to make change with confidence and overcome your fear is to realize that you cannot do it alone. You've got to find other people. Now, if these are good friends of yours, great. If they're people that were mentors or could be mentors, people in other companies, other industries, finding ways to talk to others. We have to use people to advance our career. So if you want to work with a coach or a resume writer, that's great. If you don't want to do that, you've got to find other people who understand what you do and can help you kind of come out of your shell and realize that what you do is smart and talented and engaging and interesting and needed out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
to give you,
Everybody has
you
to
can't,
yeah.
we don't give ourselves confidence. I think that's a misnomer, that people think that I'm going to give myself confidence. No, quite frankly, people give us confidence. When people validate what we do, that gives us confidence. So you need to go find your validators.
You need to go get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just one final comment before we wrap up, because I love what you said before. You know, staying empowered, removing fear. If you don't, and how did you say this? If you don't make the decision to stay empowered and stay on top of things, somebody else will take your, right? I mean, and that's the other thing that we're majorly talking about here, which is empowerment to make your decisions. So could you talk about that for a minute while we wrap up?
Yeah, I think everybody has to kind of take control of their career. If we look at how long do people stay in their jobs, if they're staying less than 3 years, that whether that's on their own or that's made for them, they've got to realize that, you know, they need to kind of protect themselves. I think that everybody should always be learning, be growing, talking to others. I think one of the best things that you can do to advance your career is to actually help others. When you help others, they tend to want to give back. I think empowering others gives more to you as well. So to overcome your fears, to have confidence, you got to kind of be up and talking to other people and helping them, let them help you. Keep your resume current all the time. Use LinkedIn. Don't be afraid that people are going to see you for who you are.
Right.
When people see you for who you are, you get to do great things, interesting things, the things that you love to do. And so that's where you do have to take control of that. You do have to manifest that and make that happen by letting others see you for who you are. And that's where I think people are slightly terrified, but when they get it and they reap the rewards of it, it's pretty amazing.
I think too, something that's always helped me is like knowing that there's always going to be someone out there that doesn't like you, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, just be you, because even if you were somebody else, they may not like that person. So you might as well just be you.
Right. Well, and that's why, staying in touch with people that you've worked with before. I've worked with people that I really, really enjoyed working with and liked, and I've worked with some people who I didn't like that much. When I talk to the people who I really enjoyed, they remind me of all the things that I shouldn't need to think about. Like if I think about, say, that one person who I didn't like working with, 15 years ago, and every once in a while I think of them again. I can go talk to somebody else and like, but you did all of these other things, so it doesn't matter. People are going to be the ones that give us the confidence.
Yeah, and you got to go get it. You got to go take it with action. So, well, I really love this conversation, Julia. How do people reach in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is careertransformationpartners.com. We have a great YouTube channel as well, if people just want to check that out, because we lead on the first Friday of every month a Zoom call called Just Ask Julia, where we share information and then we just open it up for questions. So anybody who just wants to see how we operate, just meet us. They just need free coaching. They can come to that, and we put all of that out on our YouTube channel, the recordings from the first part of that Zoom call. But I think the best way is to go to our website, and then they can always email me at julia@careertransformationpartners.com.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye everyone.